Massive amounts of urbanisation across the world is occurring, and in not much more than a decade from now we are going to have 36 megacities over 10 million and many cities over 1 million and above 5 million. And if you have a look at where they're clustered, it really underscores the implications of the Asian century in terms of where we are geographically.
About 80% of Australians live in our cities, and they account for about the same proportion of our gross domestic product and probably about the same proportion of our greenhouse gas emissions. So pretty clearly, cities matter.
The real challenge for Australia is we won't have the luxury of significant levels of underutilised infrastructure capacity either in our roads or our mass transit systems. So the key point is, while we'll see growth in our cities and growing demand for our cities to be the drivers of our economic future, what we have got is an infrastructure problem which will inhibit your industry and the transport sector.
As we all know, urban congestion in our capital cities has been estimated by the Bureau of Infrastructure, Transport and Regional Economics to cost the nation $20 billion by 2020. That is a real cost, and a real cost that needs to be addressed.
One of the big things we think that could change the way we do things is a full-blown road pricing arrangement, which effectively would see the federal government remove fuel excise, which would reduce fuel by 38 cents per litre. We'd see state governments remove registrations fees, for example, and then a per kilometre charge would apply to the use of your car based on the time of day and where you're driving.
And what we're seeing through the latest census results is that our outer metropolitan areas is where 2/3 of our growth is taking place in our cities, but less than 40% of our new jobs are being created in those outer metropolitan areas. So we're starting to magnify the problem of disconnect between our housing and our employment and service provision, and this becomes one of the major issues for our cities.
The National Growth Areas Alliance estimates $50 billion of investment is required to halve the gap between outer metro and inner metro areas of Australian cities in terms of access to jobs, services and public transport. Families in these areas are commonly forced into owning 2 or 3 cars per household as the only choice they have.
The fact is that public transport is crucial to our future. Here in Australia, we must make public transport so affordable, so safe and so reliable that the natural choice is to leave our cars at home. Buses, those grand workhorses of our roads, will become ever more important as that happens.
The urban form is critical, and getting the sorts of densities of population needed to make public transport effective is also crucial. That's one of the areas that as a profession the planning has a lot of difficulty with. It's certainly something that we've been trying to sell to the community for a long time, that we need to increase our densities and have more compact cities to make public transport more viable.
But more importantly, what we found is an area that had been an old warehouse area, very close to the CBD, and very little activity, now is a hub for housing. Over 9,000 housing units there, with people that are very active. They are 11.5 times more likely to take public transit than the greater Portland region, which is pretty transit-oriented. They are 4.5 times more likely to walk for a trip and 2.5 more times more likely to take a bicycle.
We've moved from mixed-use walkable neighbourhoods to single-use car-based neighbourhoods, which reduces not only incidental walking but also incidental social contact and interaction. And that suggests that if we want to increase social connection and mobility, we also need to think about the overall structure and shape of our cities.
Tragically, more than 16,000 Australians are estimated to die prematurely each year because they are insufficiently physically active. The cost to the community is enormous. It's been identified in a study conducted in 2007 to be almost $14 billion a year.
People who use public transport on average get 41 minutes a day of physical activity, walking to and from and to the public transport station and to work, compared to car users typically driving to work who got about 8 minutes incidental activity.
And it's not just about transport, it's also about health. We found that people who lived in transit-friendly neighborhoods, places that were walkable and bikeable, weighed about 2.3 kilos less than their counterparts in other parts of the region, and that their health care costs were just slightly less than $6,000 per annum below what the average was for the rest of the region.
Now is the time to show leadership by getting serious about public transport and active transport infrastructure funding that will make our cities more livable. The Moving Australia Report 2030 is an exquisite gift we should give to future generations.